Hello, welcome to my channel. If you are a fan of the abnormal, the paranormal, the dark, or the weird, you have come to the right place. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, and without further ado, here is our story. Hey guys, I hope you guys are all having a wonderful Thanksgiving. And if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, then I just hope you're having a wonderful week. I decided today I'm going to go over a certain story that I find kind of interesting. And this topic has always fascinated me. Before I tell my story though, I'm going to go over a little history of this phenomena and tell you some findings that I've uncovered, because when this happened to me, I didn't really know what that was. The paranormal incident I want to cover in this story is called out-of-body experiences. They're also called astral projection or spirit walking, depending on your religion or upbringing. An out-of-body experience is pretty much what it sounds like. It is the capability of one to leave their body and see the world from their spirit form. Many people describe this as a feeling of floating or even being up above your body and able to look down at it. An out-of-body experience can happen at pretty much any time, but most of the time, out-of-body experiences don't last for very long. Certain neurological conditions have actually been known to make people more susceptible to an out-of-body experience. So certain things like epilepsy or other conditions can cause you to have them more often. And there isn't really much known of what causes an out-of-body experience, but there are a lot of theories. There's stress or trauma is one thing that is thought to cause an out-of-body experience, because the body's fear response can make you detach from a intense situation. Some research even shows that women in labor are actually highly susceptible to an out-of-body experience, and so this kind of shows that it can be a way of your body's response to coping with trauma. Some medical conditions that have been associated with out-of-body experiences are epilepsy, migraines, cardiac arrest, brain injuries, depression, and anxiety, just to name a few. There's also medication, near-death experiences, and sleep deprivation that have also been known to cause out-of-body experiences. In history, there are actually lots of beliefs that out-of-body experiences were real and that people could travel to other worlds and other dimensions during them. In Norse mythology, they actually believed that you could travel up and down the Yggdrasil tree into the 9 realms using the Bifrost while in an out-of-body experience. And so now, on with my story. In 2010, one of my friends was living with my husband and my kids and I, and her and I like to go out and kind of run errands together, and sometimes we just go driving so that we could de-stress or relax from a long day. One such evening, we actually were driving back towards our home from just going out driving and relaxing when a motorcycle pulled out in front of us. We slammed on our brakes trying to avoid hitting him, but we were way too close to stop, and we slammed into him. I remember as we hit him, I saw the motorcyclist's head hit the hood of the car, and then the smoke from the airbags filled the air, and all I could see was dust and the big white bags and broken glass. Now, before we all panic, everyone was okay. The motorcyclist was wearing a helmet. We all had on our belts. He had a little bit of a headache from hitting his head, but other than that, all he walked away with was a slight limp and a busted up ankle. But other than that, he was okay. My friend and I were okay too, but the airbags deploying actually caused a lot of issues with whiplash and other neck and back issues. We actually spent 2 years going to doctor's appointments for back problems and migraines that were caused by the accident. And then in 2011, almost 2 years after the accident, I had just come home from a long day at work and then went to a doctor's appointment after work. I came home and cleaned up the house a bit since the kids had gotten home before I did and there were toys everywhere. I already had a slight migraine when I got off work, but the doctor's visit and cleaning the house seemed to just make it worse. I could hardly see. Any light would just hurt my eyes. The sound of any noise made my head pound. And this was by far the worst migraine that I've ever had then and have ever had since. I finally decided to go upstairs to my room, shut my blinds, turn off my lights, and try and lay down and get rid of it. I laid on my bed and put an ice pack over my eyes and just laid there in silence, just trying to rest and breathe deeply to try and help myself relax. The back of my head was just throbbing and I started to feel nauseous. Suddenly, though, my nausea kind of started to subside and my body started to feel heavy. I felt this really strange sensation, like my whole body was just vibrating. Every molecule was tingling, like it was just pulsating. I started to see something, even though my eyes were closed, and it was really dark in my room. It looked almost like a bright light peeking through the darkness of my closed eyelids. The light then turned to colors. Thousands and thousands of colors streaming toward me, and they were kind of turning in circles. The only thing I could think of that reminds me of what it would look like is the old kaleidoscopes that we used to use as a kid. A kaleidoscope of colors just turning around my eyes. I started to kind of feel like I was at peace, and I felt like I was light as a feather. But then something terrifying happened. Then I heard some man with a deep voice say right into my ear, "Welcome to the astral plane." It felt so real that I felt like I could feel his breath on my ear. My heart jumped into my throat and I shot up in bed. I freaked out and jumped out of the bed and out of my room. I did not care about the migraine anymore. I didn't know what happened to me, but it felt very strange and just at that time did not feel right. A few days later, I called one of my good friends that's actually very knowledgeable about this type of stuff, and I told them what happened, and they said that they thought I had had an out-of-body experience. Everyone in life experiences loss from time to time, whether it's a loved one, a family pet, or a friend. That's an unfortunate part of life, but it is a part of life that we must all experience. In 2013, I lost my dad to Alzheimer's, and it was really difficult for me because he and I didn't have the best relationship in the last few years of his life. I took his death really hard. I took it out on some people and was beating myself up for his death and the condition of our relationship before he passed. I didn't know at the time that he was still there watching over me. Approximately 3 weeks after he passed, I was working at the unnamed pizza place that I used to work at. I was one of the closing managers that night, and so I had to stay late, shutting down the store, doing dishes, and many other duties as a manager. The whole night, my dad was on my mind, missing him and wishing that I could tell him some things that I discovered as I was getting older and hadn't been in contact with him over the past 6 years. After I was finished working that night, I closed up the store and I was heading out for the night to go home. I had to drive quite a while to get home from the pizza place, and it was a snowy night in December, but the roads were decent, so I traveled along the highway like I normally do. To put it in context, I've been told I have a lead foot. And no, I don't have a lead foot when I'm driving in snow or when the roads are icy, just when I'm certain that the roads are clear. I got to this one road that night that I normally turn on to go home. That is this long stretch of straight road, and the speed limit's 50 miles per hour on it. So when I got on it, I started to speed up like I normally do in my little race car, get going fast. There was this thick fog that was stretching across the road and pretty much all over the place. But I could see through it okay. About a couple 100 feet ahead, after I'd started speeding up, I could see what looked like a little shadow in the middle of the road. The shadow kind of looked like it could be human, and it was probably about the size of a 5 or 6-year-old. I squinted at it and looked closer at it through the fog and could see that it kind of looked like a little boy. So I started to slow down so that I could stop, see if he needs help, if maybe it was some kid that had wandered out of his house and was wandering up and down the road. I slowed almost to a stop, and I was just about to where the boy was when he suddenly disappeared. I looked around me, trying to see where he went and where he possibly could have gone. When I didn't see anything, I slowly started to accelerate to see if I could start going again and get myself home. But suddenly, the car started to slide. I corrected the car and stopped the car from fishtailing or even going off into this road that was a large ditch, but it was almost like it was kind of a cliffside because it was a really large ditch that was on the side of the road. And just as I got my car to stop, I caught a glimpse of my rearview mirror. And I saw now that the boy was sitting in my back seat. But what I saw sitting in my back seat was not just any boy. The boy in my back seat was actually a picture of my father that I knew all too well. It was a picture of my father that he had shown me the last time I'd seen him alive. A picture of him when he was 5 years old. He was 5 years old, and he was riding on a pony, just like he had shown me all my life, this picture of him. It was then that I knew my dad had never left my side. So if these kind of stories are the kind that interest you, and you like to listen to ghost stories or the paranormal, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. We post 1 to 2 times a week. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.